We're live, we're live, we're live, we're live. Hey, what's up? This is Griff, and I'm in the middle of a paradise known as Humboldt Redwood State Parks. And I'm going to try to show you guys as much of it as possible during this talk because I know that a lot of you are still sheltering in place in, let's just say, less beautiful areas. Okay, so let me fix my phone right here real quick. And so I want to share with you how beautiful this area is. And so just to give you a sense of place, I'm just off the Avenue of the Giants, which is usually a very loud place because of all the traffic this time of year. But because of sheltering in place recommendations, it is not nearly as loud as it usually is, and why I can do these videos right here. So it is beautiful. It is quiet. I've noticed more wildlife. I'm feeling really blessed to be sheltering in place right here. And I'm happy to bring this to you guys. And most of you who are on here, you should get to know each other because you all have some things in common. One is you love parks. That was a weird smell. Excuse me. Sorry about that. One is you all love parks. Two is you all like wildlife and nature. Okay. And these are very good things to build relationships on. Friendships, relationships, you know what I'm saying. So take time to like see who else is on here and following and commenting, because chances are they are potential allies in making the world a better place, because that's what these live streams basically are coming from state parks. Is parks are this beautiful concept where it doesn't matter if you're rich or poor, you can come enjoy nature. Okay? And that we've set aside these places for biodiversity, variety of life. And that is wonderful that we live in a society that has evolved this far. We have a lot further to go, I know, but it's wonderful to be alive during a time where we have these places that we know are sacred or beautiful or ecologically rich, or however you want to think about it. So to help you to be even better wildlife conservationists, I'm going to introduce you to a few concepts, but first I want you guys to see how beautiful this place is. And those concepts are Keystone, which we'll define here in a minute as we look past this maple tree at the South Fork of the Eel River, which is an amazing, beautiful place. Keystone, we're going to talk about that. We're going to talk about invasive species and define that and just talk about it a little bit. Invasive species. And we're going to talk about pathogens. And haven't we been talking about pathogens lately? Pathogens is basically anything that will make you sick. We'll just keep it simple and say that. So it could be bacteria, it could be a virus, it could be fungus, it could be all kinds of things. It could be my ex. No, exes aren't included in that. But we are going to talk about those things in context of a... Oh, I just heard a pileated woodpecker. In context of a very amazing plant. Oh, and look there's an amazing plant. So let's go check it out. So this plant was, plants and animals have had relationships with humans in lots of different ways. Either they appear in our lore, or in our food, or in our medicines, or in our shelters. Like, we have a lot of different relationships with the things around us. I just said in an interview yesterday that my closest relative by weight is the Eel River, because that's where I get most of my water, and 80% of me is water. So by weight, my closest relative is that river over there, okay? So like, we're not separate. And that's why we get diseases from animals, because we are animals and we're part of nature. And that COVID virus that went from China and got us, it's getting us, unfortunately. That story is not a new story. That happens all the time. That's been happening for centuries, and it's getting more and more common because of how fast we can travel from one part of the world to the other. And so we're skipping all these evolutionary steps, and we're taking things that evolved here, and we're moving them to places where they didn't evolve. And so the other organisms there don't have a relationship with them, and they're like the obnoxious person at the party, like the obnoxious serial killer at the party, and they start killing things. And it's not just us that experience that, it's plants. So let's talk about the obnoxious serial killer of this wonderful plant. So this is a tan oak, and it's not really an oak tree. Hopefully you guys can see this well. It's not really an oak tree. it just makes acorns, and so we call it tan oak. It's oak trees, their genus is Quercus, and this is a Notholipocarpus. I know it sounds like a Harry Potter spell, but so Notholipocarpus densiflora. Bing! You turned into something. And this has had interesting relationships with humans. For thousands and thousands and thousands and thousands of years, people right here have been eating let's go find another one. Have been eating the acorns of the tan oak, okay? It was the #1 preferred acorn because, and here's another one, small. As you see, they can grow underneath redwoods, which means they're shade tolerant. So it's a shade tolerant acorn producing plant, which is amazing. And then before we go any further, you see those bite marks and dead marks on this tan oak? Okay. So if this was in your yard, a lot of you'd be like, get some poison, some spray the poison on it, get them bugs off. No. Do you like butterflies? Chances are these are butterfly baby bite marks. So, let me get you back on the tan oak here. So we don't want to spray anything. Bite marks are good, okay? So these bite marks are caterpillars, and then mama bird comes, she grabs these caterpillars from eating this tan oak, and she takes it to her babies. And that's another reason why tan oaks are such an amazing food plant for wildlife. It's not just the acorns, it's also the insects they support. Okay, and their leaf litter makes really good habitat for salamanders and frogs and all kinds of other animals that try to hide under the leaf litter. So this plant was eaten by humans. It's ecologically a keystone species, and we're going to talk about keystone species in just a second. We're going to define that for you. And people still eat this. So indigenous people are still, Native Americans are still eating this plant, but this used to be a major food staple. When the colonizers came, they've noticed all these wonderful groves of great big huge tan oaks, and they kicked off the people or massacred the people who lived here, and in most of the places, and they put their pigs underneath there, and the pigs ate the acorns. And that went on for a long time until it was discovered that in tan oaks, the tannins you can use to process leather and hides. And so all these tanneries opened all over California, and these dudes would go out, and I'm sure they were all dudes. There's probably very few women doing this back in these days, but they put, because it was like, super misogynist and all that, you know what I'm saying? So anyways, they had baskets on the side of their mules, and they'd fill them full of the bark of tan oak trees, and they would take them to these leather processing plants. And that went on for a long time during the gold rush era. And then there's this acacia that was found in Australia that had even more tannin in the bark, and then they started growing those in South Africa where the labor was cheap, and it undercut the tanning industry here, and we lost all those leather processing plants. And that wasn't it for the tan oak. The tan oak then was targeted because it was taking up space in commercial plantations where they grow trees. And so it used to be common. I don't know if it still is or not. I should have looked this up before I did this video, but they used to spray 2,4-D, which is a broadleaf herbicide, and they would kill all the tan oaks and all the maple trees and all the bay laurels that grew in these conifer forests, like redwood or Doug fir forest, because they only wanted the conifers to grow because they had commercial value, and they didn't count ecological value as important. So that's not all landowners, that's just some. So this is very ecologically important because of the acorns mainly. And so when we remove this, we remove a huge food source, and that's why it's a keystone species. So let's walk down here. I'm going to show you some more tan oaks that look like they might have southern oak death. I doubt it, but it looks similar. Because there is tan oak in Humboldt. It's just not super widespread yet. But a keystone species is, so we talked about, keystone species is a very important species. So kind of think about it like, I've heard it once explained. You're on a plane, and this is going to be a dark analogy. You ready? Okay. And a terrorist comes up to you on the plane. And he or she says, pick a screw on the plane and pull it out. And you're like, oh, a screw out of the plane? Oh, I know. I'll pull one out of the seat. So you pull, one of the screws to keep this seat in. You feel like you're outsmarted, the terrorist. Because that screw's not that important. I mean, you'd want to have all your screws in your seat, right? But you could probably live without one. Okay, so that's not a keystone species. But what if the terrorist said you have to pull out a keystone screw? What screw would that be? Probably one that held the wing on or the engine. And that would be a very terrible screw to lose while you're in the air. And it could perhaps, if you took out one screw, it'd make the plane wing start shaking. You'd be looking out the window like all kind of scared. And it would shake harder and fly off, and then you'd spiral down and explode and die. Okay, told you it was going to be dark. That was a keystone screw. So it's kind of the same in ecosystems, in nature. There's some species that hold up a plane for many other species, and tan oak is one of those because of the acorns it provides. So the fact that it's being killed by an invasive species is horrible. So what is that invasive species? Does anybody know? Sudden oak death. It's from a water mold. That's an invasive species from Asia that came over here in nursery stock. So like, you know, some big box retailer was selling, or maybe a small box retailer was selling Asian rhododendrons. I don't know why you want to buy Asian rhododendrons. We have native rhododendrons right here, plant native plants. But they bought this one. It had the soil from Asia, and inside of it was a water mold called Mycetes, which I love saying. I've said that word so many times today. Let's say it together. Mycetes. Isn't that mouthy? Mycetes. It's water mold. Phytophthora ramorum is its scientific name. And it's, you know, it's a water mold. It's the same water mold. If those of you who are Irish, it's probably the reason why my ancestors came here, is because of the potato famine that was caused by a Phytophthora fungus, by a water mold. Okay? So they've been around. We have native Phytophthora here, don't kill everything. But this non-native invasive, so an invasive species is a species that comes from somewhere else that causes damage economically and ecologically okay? And so not all non-native species are invasives. So wheat and rice and corn are non-native to the United States, northern United States at least. And they're not invasive species because they're not growing into the forest and displacing plants. But Phytophthora is, because it's spreading really fast and it's changing the landscape, and it's killing keystone species. So you can learn more about this at suddenoakdeath.org, suddenoakdeath.org. And I'm going to talk about some things you can do in just a minute. Let me put you back on observe, because I know you guys are stuck in the house and don't want to see my face the whole entire time. You want to see how beautiful it is here and listen to the birds. There's some dark-eyed junco singing. I've heard another bird I can't identify, varied thrushes singing. So keystone species is a very important species. Invasive species is a species that comes from somewhere else, skipped the evolutionary filtering of evolving with its neighbors, and just started attacking. And then in the case of Phytophthora ramorum, it hosts in 100 plants. So this is Umbellera california, bay leaf. This is a fascinating plant I'll do a live on one time, because this is a paleo relic. It grew here with its cousin avocado. This is related to avocado during when United States was tropical. And it's one of the only 2 tropical plants left in California from that time millions of years ago. So it made it through the ice age and everything. That's bay laurel. It smells super good, very strong. But it's a host of sudden oak death. And then the sudden oak death kills mostly oaks. So the red oaks. So you could split. This is a lot of information, I know. Sudden oak death doesn't kill all oaks. There's oaks in a family called white oaks, like valley oaks and blue oaks, California natives, endemics actually, meaning they only live in California. Too many terms, huh? But they can survive sudden oak death. So if you have the red oaks, so like the live oaks, the black oaks, if you have those things, and you're afraid, and tan oaks, which are oak cousin, and you still want the wildlife to have acorns, and plant one of the white oak species, okay? So like valley oaks or Oregon white oaks. So those would work too. So we're still on our way to look for tan oaks. So a great way to prevent the spread of sudden oak death is it's a water mold, and so part of its life cycle, it swims. And so if you're out tromping through a beautiful place like this and you get that mud all over in your backyard and spreading, if you chop wood in a place that's been infected with sudden oak death, and it doesn't have to be oak tree, like I said, bay laurels can be hosts of it, then you're spreading sudden oak death. If you see a pile of mulch on the side of the road and you fill your truck up full of it, which I do sometimes, when I had a truck, then you could take that mulch home and spread it on your yard, and therefore be making more sudden oak death. So to learn how you can prevent the spread, please go to suddenoakdeath.org, because we really don't want it to spread through our parks fast. We love our tan oaks. We love our biodiversity, aka variety of life. So up ahead are some more tan oaks that we're gonna look at, but I just want you guys to really see this part. This is an old growth forest, but it's had some logging in it. We'll see evidence of that in a minute. But it's beautiful, and those of you sheltering in place, as soon as you can, you should come visit, because this is a beautiful, magical, awesome spot where life is on top of life is on top of life. So we're walking towards these tan oaks. So we talked about keystone species, species that other things depend on, like the important screw in the plane, like the wing screw that you wouldn't pull out. Okay. We talked about invasive species, and these are non-native species that cause economic and or ecological damage to nature. And then pathogens are things that kill us, like COVID virus or Mycetes. Phytophthora morum killing sudden oak. So here's a sudden oak that's very sick. It doesn't have the telltale signs of sudden oak death. So I think something else is killing these two. Because usually there's like a canker associated on the bole of the tree, on the trunk of the tree. And I don't really see that on this one. But you can see there's lots of dead leaves here. Okay. So it's sad because this is an important tree. But something's killing it. It doesn't have to be Phytophthora morums. It could be something else. But to identify tan oaks feel like plastic because they're perennial. They're evergreen. So if it feels like hard plastic, chances are it's not deciduous, and deciduous means loses its leaves. And it's got this powdery substance on the bottom. And so it feels like it's dusty all the time. And also the veins are really, they really stick out there. And so you can really feel the veins on it. And then it has these dentate leaf margins. So you see the little dentate leaf margins there. See the little pokies on the end? That's how you can tell it's tan oak. So, oops, I was about to. So let me turn this camera around on myself as soon as I can figure out how to do that. It wants me to make a little, okay. So anyways, the take-home message is, when you come to the park in the winter, if you've been somewhere else you know how sudden oak, please clean your boots off thoroughly before you come into our park so you don't spread sudden oak death here, because the animals depend on these acorns that come from the tan oaks. Also, don't move firewood far, and find out if you're in a county that has sudden oak death. You can find out on suddenoakdeath.org, and not spread the firewood or the mulch. The chippings that you see on the side of the road, be very careful with those as well, because this is a terrible disease that kills animals. And tan oaks used to be this iconic species that we were like family with. And it's no longer like our family, to some people, because they want to kill it and move it out of the way so they can have a tree plantation. But it's a really important tree ecologically, and we need everybody to be aware of sudden oak death. So thank you very much. Let me look through your questions real quick. Isn't it better to take the sick trees out to not let it spread? Yes, that is a management tool. And then also all the trees around the sick tree, you want to take all those out too. And I think it's like 900 feet radius or 6 acres around the tree that you want to take out. So I think that's right. It will explain that on suddenoakdeath.org, I believe. But yeah, you'd want to clear it and burn it. So you would clear all the trees out, you pile them up there right on the spot, and you would burn them because they can still sporulate, meaning they can still the Mycetes could still reproduce in the dead body of the tree unless you burn it. So that was a great question, Sandra. Lorena, what's up? Mark, what do you have a question? Anybody else have any questions? Dead tan oaks are a fire risk. You know what? All dead trees are a fire risk. But you know what's even more of a fire risk? It's too many live trees. So we have more trees in California than ever, and they're growing real close to each other, and that's called a dog hair thicket. And so when colonizers came here, there was already a lot of snag standing dead trees, which are really good for wildlife. But if you get a bunch of trees that are right next to each other, because you've prevented fires, then the fire gets into the crowns, and it's called crown fire, and it kills all the trees. And so you want trees spread far apart. You do want to leave some dead ones because it's great for wildlife, but you definitely want to thin cut out and use fire as a management tool, which is another live. That's a whole nother live. But that's a great point. Who brought that up? Oh, I've lost it. Nikki, which trail am I on? I'm in the Gould Grove because it has the best reception. Hey, Sarah. Yes, I know. I just covered a lot of information. What's up, Naberto? Yes, Mark, you are absolutely right. He says sudden oak death spreads in the bottom of the boots. And yeah, if it's muddy outside, You're going to spread it. So thank you guys very much. Thank you for caring about wildlife and caring about nature and caring about parks. I can't wait till you guys can come back out and see it. I mean, I really enjoy having the park to almost myself. I have to admit that. You know, I'd be lying if I said that wasn't true. But I want you guys to come out here and bond with us. I want you to bring your kids or bring your nephews and nieces or whatever and have them bond to this park and to nature and get curious and ask questions and have a good time so that they want to grow up and be guardians of the parks and of nature. So thank you very much. Please like and share our videos, and we're here every day at 3 o'clock doing something live from someplace awesome. Talk to you guys later.